Right. Hey guys, good evening. Hope good to see everybody. How are we doing this evening? Good. Got the orange screen going on in the background because we're going into Adobe Illustrator this evening, so that's awesome. But good to have you guys. And I got it recording, so that's even better. So we are ready to rock and roll. Good to see everybody. Hopefully you guys are having a good one. Happy Thursday. Can't believe it's like Friday tomorrow also. So definitely the days and the weeks go by really quick. So that's always a surprise for me out there. Today we had our last run through of our day school. We had our last two groups of students that came in. And so it was really interesting to finalize it. Discovered a couple of things. One, if you wear too tight of a mask, or if you wear two masks, you're going to cut your air off pretty significantly. And when you're teaching, moving, and you're cutting your airflow, you're probably not going to feel that great at the end of the day. So definitely made that discovery the hard way. I was like, why do I have a headache? It's like, man, no wonder I'm not breathing completely through when I'm in class. And so that's definitely an adjustment, like how to do it with the classroom and things like that. So yeah, I found that to be really interesting. And it definitely explained a lot in regards to like all these different things. So it made a difference coming to that realization. So probably try to find a really good N95 will probably be the name of the game, or applying it, because that was a little bit of a shocker. That carried over into yesterday, Wednesday, and I normally never go to bed early, but I ended up falling asleep like at 8, 9 o'clock, and that's never my MO, right? So you put all that together, and then you start you just basically start to come to those conclusions. So I found it really interesting that all that kind of happened. So today was a lot easier, a little bit. I knew what to expect. It flowed a little bit easier, but definitely have the proper mask, but don't cut off your airflow to the level that you're going to faint either. Because that would never be fun for anybody, period. So I learned that a little bit today. So I was like, interesting, very interesting. But I'm glad. So that's just one thing that just happened for today. So, but definitely happy to be with you guys, because we are still moving forward with our Adobe Illustrator exercises. So we're finally kind of getting over that, getting over our design therapies and going through all the basic sort of intros that I like to kind of look at it as like introductory level things. And now we're getting to finally like some of the basic tools and basic skills, or the technical skills related to that, right? So we're finally getting into that. We'll be working on our Illustrator tools exercise. So today's going to be definitely a little bit more of lab time. I'm trying to design it so that we have enough days like on Thursday to kind of put in some lab work, do some exercises, ask some questions, possibly roll out the following week's lessons. And so I'm trying to design it in that sort of caliber. And today we'll be working on that exercise, which is the toolbar exercise in Adobe Illustrator. We'll be also following up with the paintbrush and the blob brush tools, just so that you can see a little bit of what the tool can do in terms of its range of expressions. So Illustrator can create lots of different brush effects using the same sort of path or vector line that you create. So that's something that's kind of interesting that I want to expose you guys to a little bit. And that's also kind of like a creative exercise. So we'll be getting some time to work on it this evening and get more and more familiar with the tools and the interface. So we kind of start off real basic, real slow, and we kind of level up from there. So everything's scaffolded, everything's baby steps. So that's where we're heading. Tonight we'll definitely get to, facial expressions. We'll do the labeling of the pen tool or the labeling of the toolbar, moving up to brushes. And so we'll get that going for this evening. Possibly, who knows, we might even get started on the pen tool exercise and start understanding how the pen tool is, because the pen tool in Adobe Illustrator is, well, actually the pen tool in all Adobe products is probably one of the most powerful tools ever in the whole suite. There's a lot of things that these programs can do, but I think the pen tool is probably one of the most powerful tools that, we'll put it this way, because other companies have sort of stolen that tools approach and sort of the workings of it, says a lot. So we'll be moving on into that for sure by next week, learning the pen tool exercise and some of the basic tools for that. So we'll be doing that for this evening for sure, and possibly rolling out that pen tool exercise. For packaging design, just a quick run through, guys. Tonight, I want to definitely get some airtime with you to discuss, and I'll roll out the warm up there in just a couple of seconds. But I definitely want to get some airtime with you guys on the phase 1 research and strategy of our packaging and branding. So I want to make sure that we get a little bit of time to talk about it. So we definitely are going to go over your concepts, your research, and where you are. We'll also get a few minutes to watch 15 minutes of the How Creative Agencies Present. So once we get the breakout room open for you guys, I would probably start watching the film or the YouTube link or the video first, and then we'll get connected and start talking a little bit about process and your project. So we'll definitely have some time this evening to get to everyone and talk a little bit about your project. Okay. And for anyone that's not here that we're watching the rebroadcast, and obviously you'll have some time to catch up with that too, and we'll move forward from there. Last thing I'll say is that I think three students in the class, I sent out a request to unlock some of the share settings for Principles of Design. I noticed a couple of you have done that. Thank you so much for doing it. I totally appreciate it. Don't worry, you're not going to get docked points or anything like that. It was just like 3 different files that I noticed that were not shared. So thank you for opening them up and sharing them. I'll eventually get to them. If not this week, then by next week for sure. Okay. So we'll be able to get you caught up with the points there too. And I think about 5 students in the class. I don't know if some are here and others are probably watching the rebroadcast, but if you got a message from me on how to catch up, definitely take a look at it, because we're doing pretty good. Majority of the class is passing, but if there's a few of you that are feeling like you are behind and you think that there's no way to catch up, in fact, there's a lot of these exercises can be caught up within about 30 minutes to an hour, give or take, depending on how you're scheduling your time. So, the value-based exercise, literally, for those folks that I sent messages to, I give you links to the exact video and point in the video where you can follow along and catch up with that process. So, I've already spoken to a few students. It's not as bad as you think. So if you're feeling like you're behind or your grade is extremely low, believe it or not, you can get caught up in literally 30 minutes to roughly an hour, depending on those 2 critical exercises. So, and that's the value-based exercise and the Principles of Design. Normally, those 2 exercises are always the ones that people get a little bit not stuck, but they feel it takes some adjustment, because those are 2 very different and new concepts that we're trying to master. So it's always a little bit bumpy when we get to those 2 areas. So I leave a lot of opportunity to kind of plug in the exercise, follow along, and get caught up. And then because it's more theory than anything. And then from here on in, we're basically going to be doing a lot of projects related to Principles of Design. And so it's the same thing, just in different applications. So I don't want to say the worst is over, but in terms of like interpretations, because we will still be interpreting and doing warm-ups for principles of design, but we will be getting to a point where it's going to feel less and less of a struggle. You'll get more comfortable applying it and going back to the learning how to learn lessons. All we're doing is reinforcing that information by through repetition. So we're just setting it up to practice repeat so that it becomes permanent in your memory and in your design career. So that's kind of the theory behind it. So that's why we're repeating, so that we can get more into the long-term memory, all these theories and elements and principles of design. So that's kind of the big plan behind it all. Okay. So just wanted to give you guys a little bit of an update. So if you got that message, feel free to take a look at it, click onto those links, and literally it shows you step by step how to get caught up within a very, very short amount of time. You can be caught up in one weekend and still be set up for success in the class. So just wanted to share that with you and encourage you guys, for those of us that might be a little bit behind. Okay. So just wanted to share those. That being said, if there's any questions, feel free to email me. I've a few of you have and continue to do, and I've been really good with those emails. If at any point you need to just have a conversation, then we'll have some opportunities, possibly a little bit during break or after class, or we can even schedule an appointment during office hours, and we can talk to you then as well. Okay. So just wanted to kind of share a couple of tidbits there. Okay. If that sounds good, you can give me a little thumbs up emoji. And what we're going to do is we're going to set up some breakout rooms for everybody. And so that we can get packaging set up and we can get our digital illustration set up for this evening as well. And I'm going to set it up in 2 seconds. We're going to do one, which is for packaging design. So packaging designers, we'll definitely be talking about your project concepts and a little bit about the education and presentation. So we'll be having that this evening. And I'm going to just set up a one-on-one room just in case we need to talk. So that's more of a backup room than anything. And we'll get you set up there. Okay, perfect. All right, packaging design. So we'll see you over there in just a few moments. And for the rest of the class, I'm going to roll out what are we going to see here? I am going to roll out a warm-up related to what we did on Tuesday, last session. So let's go ahead and get that ready for you. I'm going to put it into the link there, shorten it, and I'm going to pull it up on screen here so that we can set it up and minimize this, get that over here, and expand my screen so that way I can see the whole toolbar. Yes, let's share the screen, shall we? Okay, so forgive me for this gray screen, but we're gonna do a quick little warm up in it, and it's going to be a Google form in the chat. Here it is. Go ahead and click onto it, and it's basically a Google form asking a very simple question. And the question it's asking there, and forgive me for the gray, is based on what we talked about on Tuesday. What are the file types for raster versus vector images? If you recall, there's different formats of files, different ways to describe the images. How would you, in your own words, describe a raster versus vector image? Okay. Go ahead and fill it in at the bottom of the form there. And as a matter of fact, I want to switch over so that we can get you a clear visual for it. And it'll basically say, what are some image and file type differences between raster and vector images? So as you see that, go ahead and take a moment to respond. And we'll share some of those responses. Okay, don't forget to enter your first name, last name, and hit submit. But how would you describe the two different types of raster and vector images? What are some of the image and file type differences that you recall from Tuesday? Okay, take a few moments and we'll circle back around with our exercise and do a recap. And let's see here. Let's share my screen and we'll get that set for you. Beautiful. Okay. So far the replies are looking pretty good. And about almost half the class replied. So if you're still typing, keep going. I just want to see what the breakdowns are. And we just want to recall what do we remember from Tuesday or maybe even from previous classes. That's okay too. We'll take whatever it is that you recall from the question. I think I'm gonna need to upgrade the playlist. Okay, so far so good. These are good replies, guys. A little bit over half. And wait for a couple more replies and then we'll kind of get going there. Maybe one of these days I'll do like a freestyle lesson or something. Takes some massive skill to teach and rhyme. Okay, so we got to, okay, so the replies are really good. If you're still typing, go ahead and do so. I think there might be 3 or 4 of us that are still typing, but let's take a peek and then we'll see where we are with the replies. So I'm going to share my screen so we can kind of get a little bit of a visual. What I like about Google Forms is it allows me to get a real-time view of like replies and see what everyone's thinking, where you are in real time. So that's always a big plus. So overall, let's kind of go down the list in terms of vectors. Some differences between raster and vector. Vector images use lines to create icons. Raster images use pixels to create real-life images. Yep. Correct, right? We kind of saw a little bit of like the range and the power of the vector. Vector is predominant, can be used for icons, but as we saw, it can be used to create some pretty powerful photographs as well. And so predominantly, I don't know, I have yet to meet somebody that can do this with Adobe Illustrator. It's much easier to take a photo and use Photoshop, right? But typically that's correct, Elizabeth. Like, you know, mostly used for vector, icons, raster, cartoon-like graphics, and pixels typically will follow like those real images, photo-like images that you would normally see in like a Photoshop program. And so those are some of the dominant factors, but they do kind of cross worlds if you really had put in the time to do that. So it is possible. I would describe vectors as lines or either curving or straight, as rasters, pixel or shaped images. Okay. Yeah, I would agree with that. Raster images made up of pixels can be seen if enlarged. Vector images are much more smoother and can be made large and still look smooth because they're made up of computer-generated lines and paths. So I think, Jay, you were saying that it cannot be seen if enlarged for raster versus vector that can be seen. That would be correct. If we take any type of Illustrator image, vector graphic, right, fonts drawn in the program, any way you increase or decrease scale, quality is preserved, right? And versus images or photographs that are pixels, that are composed of pixels, if I were to increase or decrease it in a Photoshop, or even put a photograph in Illustrator that's low quality, quote, low quality, low pixel, or has less pixels to make up that image, then if I were to increase the scale of the image, it would look blurry. So yeah, totally makes sense there. Raster, pixels, non-scalable, large files, gradients, vector, points, strokes, scalable, solid lines, colors, smaller file lines. I would say you're correct there, Emily. You'll see eventually that even Illustrator can create gradations, quote unquote, gradients. So it's even possible to do that in the program as well. Because as we can see, we can create photo-like images So Illustrator can now do just as much as like any other Photoshop image, and that also includes gradations and gradients, which is kind of cool. It still qualifies as like multiple colors or 4-color processes, but it's still possible nonetheless, which is really interesting. Vectors are paths. Raster images made of with the paintbrush tool. Close there, Amy. We'll learn a little bit more about it today as we recap, but you're halfway there. So we'll see the differences between the two. Because paintbrush tool can create just about anything, and it could, and we'll get a chance to play with that later this evening as well. Raster images, rendering complex multicolor visuals, containing more inches per inch. So correct. Whereas, let's take a look. Vector images have less pixels per share inch, describe those quad blurring. Yeah. Jesus, right too, different file formats. We don't have to worry about what the file formats are, but there are different file types, file formats that are more pixel based and others that are more vector based, right? For this class, Adobe Illustrator the file format is AI. So you always will see like the file name .ai at the end of it, as we will explore a little bit with some of our brush stroke exercises. So yeah, these are great. So everyone kind of predominantly remembers some of the main differences. And so moving forward, in terms of just what this program can do, as just a quick recap, it's the industry standard, it's vector. And by industry, we can create T-shirts, we can create logos, icons for mobile devices. We can create maps that are being used on desktop and mobile device, personal projects, right? The Illustrator is super powerful. Fonts, very popular. When designing a font, Adobe Illustrator is the program of choice. And so it's always used for those circumstances. And you can typically recreate any graphic, any image with this program. So if you could draw it by hand, then this program can technically draw it, trace it, even stylize it for you outside of the original tool. So if you drew something in pencil, Illustrator can you can recreate that image in Illustrator and make it look like a watercolor. Same line art, same artwork, just by switching brushes, which is kind of blows your mind when you think about it. So things can start off looking one way and end up looking completely different in terms of like formats. Vectors are paths. So we'll definitely learn more about anchor points, paths, lines when we get to that stage. We'll see that when we get to the faces exercise, which is the brushes. We'll see the differences between the two. And a great thing about it, resolution dependent, right? Increase, decrease. Type is a great example, making fonts. I can increase and decrease the font size without losing quality of the image. Always a big plus there. Redrawing images, I could take a photo, redraw it, make it look two-dimensional in the program. We could take photographs and make those photographs, we can make those photographs literally look, redraw photographs or draw drawings of people and make it look like a photorealistic person. That's a powerful tool there in and of itself, right? Definitely easier to take a photograph of a person, but it is achievable if you want to create that sort of CG effect, as it were. And when we get to the program today, we'll be concentrating on the left-hand side of the interface, which is the toolbar. So when we launch this program, it's like most other interfaces. We will obviously see on the top of the image here, let me go ahead and annotate it. And we'll see it in blue. We will always see on the top portion of this application menu bar, control panels, application bars, which never really changes with each version of the program. We will always have our favorite and most commonly used section of this interface, which is our toolbar. Toolbar is constant, our best friend. And we will always have collapsed panels or panels to sort of enhance certain features or tools. So think of those panels as like tools within tools. So if I select a tool and I want something specific with that tool to happen, the panels would help you in that area. So panels come in handy too. They're kind of like little gauges or little visual dials to show you what you can do with certain parts of the program. And as we do more, you'll definitely get a feel and a flow for it and how it operates. Okay. Our status bar will always be in the bottom, which kind of tells us where we are in the status of our design. Are we zoomed in, zoomed out at a certain percentage? Do I have a particular selection highlighted? And of course, we have our lovely artboard in the center. So those are sort of the critical parts of the program. And as we do more, we'll learn more and build off of that in time. But this evening, we're gonna start off by going into the Illustrator toolbar and labeling all 40 plus tools in this program, okay? So that's the first exercise, common vocabulary. So inside of Canvas, we should see the exercise, which is the, has a different visual, but it's basically Illustrator CC Tools exercise. And let me go ahead and open up that Google slide, and I can even share it in the chat for you so we can see it. But if I was going to go to Canvas, we'll see a link there to make a copy of the file. And I'll go ahead and connect over so that you can see it. And that's last semester's account. So we want this semester's. So we're gonna go to courses, 164. And when we go down the list into week 5, there's a few multiple activities here. We're gonna go into activity Illustrator CC Tools exercise, which will be labeled here, okay? Now, if you weren't with us on Tuesday, we did have a little bit of fun, and we did one exercise which was vector versus raster. So definitely take a look at it, and we'll be able to kind of see that there, okay? I already see a question here. Week 5 isn't available on Canvas. Should technically be there, Amy, but because everything here is showing green, but we'll see that as the issue. That's the first time I'm actually hearing about that. So week 5 isn't available on Canvas. Let's troubleshoot it. If you can send me a private message, I'll send you a couple of things you could troubleshoot, Amy, because if it's coming in, a couple of things I would ask is like, oh, you know, what browser are you on? Are you on mobile? Are you on desktop? There's a couple of questions I want to run you through, so I can determine if it's not a computer thing or system thing, or if it's Canvas itself. Unless anyone else cannot see week 5, but from what I understand, everyone can see it, and I get a green circle with a check mark indicating that it is published and live. So theoretically, everyone should be able to see it. So send me a direct message, and I'll run you through a couple of protocols to check if something's going on with your computer. So we'll kind of troubleshoot that together. Nonetheless, I'll give you the link directly. So let me go ahead and pull that up myself for you, and we'll go into Activity Illustrator CC Creative Cloud Tools, and the link is here, and I will go ahead and share it. And the way it's going to work is that we're going to make a copy of this exercise, and theoretically it should allow you to make a copy. And if I go into my share settings, it should be set for view/copy. Because if it's set for viewer, we can't edit it unless a copy is made. So let me go ahead and make sure that that feature is available. If you can't open it, then you're going to go ahead and make a copy with the file menu. Yeah, it's set for view. So if it's set for view, then technically to edit, it will need to be copied. So yeah, let me go ahead and put that in the chat. We'll say make a copy of the link here. So Amy, if you can't see the link, of course, then in the chat you can click onto it. And when you click onto it, guys, you can go to File and select Make a Copy of. You can do entire presentation, or you can select the last slide, which is slide number 3. So either or is fine. But what we're going to do here is we are going to label all the tools and the subtools of this program. Okay, so take a moment to make that copy, and then I'm going to switch over to my Adobe Illustrator just to kind of show you where those tools and what it would look like when we interface with the program. Okay, so let me go ahead and pull that up right now so we can get a little bit of a visual for that. Okay, here we go. So then that way we can use a little bit of class time to kind of trial it out. I'm resizing everything because I'm trying to see the camera. Let me see if I can move that out of the way so it's not all grayed in certain sections. And okay, that's true. Okay, so just a couple of things about how it's going to flow, guys. So let me switch over to Illustrator. I'll give you a couple of seconds. If you successfully made a copy and you're ready, maybe you can just type in the chat ready, and then that way I can see like who is ready to go and move forward. I don't want to overwhelm and go too fast. So that's just a couple of things I just want to make sure. And okay, thank you guys, appreciate it for the responses. Okay, so we got a good number of people ready to go. Okay, perfect. So let me go ahead and switch over to Adobe Illustrator. So a couple of things on Adobe Illustrator that I just want to make sure you have in terms of the launch capabilities. So depending on your system, this is mostly for Mac. So if you have a Mac, then theoretically on the if you installed your Adobe Illustrator program, you should see like this sort of infinity symbol at the top of your computer toolbar, the menu bar of your Mac. And at the top there should be like this little icon that kind of looks like a little like infinity symbol. That symbol is technically like the Adobe Creative Cloud symbol where you can launch a program through the Adobe Manager. And that little program will always pop up, and it will give you like a listing of your apps that you can launch. Updates can also be done there. I would not do an update because that slows the computer down. But after class or before class, you could always do updates at any point. But basically, when you click onto it, you should see like a list of programs, one of them being Illustrator with the little icon next to it. So it should be like an orange square with the letters A and I for Adobe Illustrator. You can click onto the little oval that says open, and it should open your program, okay? Other ways you can do it, obviously, is like the little rocket launcher on your control bar. If you have a Mac, you can do the start menu. If you have a PC and click the program, it varies on every system. I've even seen people go into the search and type in Illustrator and search and launch it that way, whichever works for you. I always like going through the Creative Cloud Manager because then it tells me if an update's available and if I should update at some point, right? So it's just it just kind of keeps me in the loop when it comes to updates mostly. Once you do that and you launch the program, then we should see a interface, and the interface should be like a create new file interface. And typically you can create multiple programs. So let me go ahead and switch here so you can get a little bit of a feel for it. And here's mine. So And of course, if it's labeled, it'll say like your name, like, hey, welcome to Illustrator. So basically what happens in this program is that Illustrator tries to kind of help you get to your projects like really, really fast. Now, I'm kind of old school. So for me, I was used to like not having a lot of like visual support. So I normally go with like what I already know, right? So I'm always trying to remind myself like how to do this if I was, you know, a first timer, like seeing this for the first time. The if there's ever a time that you feel like you have to like get to a template really quick and you don't know what the dimensions are, that's literally what the top start a new file fast section is for. So you know, I think perfect example, I was playing with like SketchUp, a 3D modeling software, and it definitely it's been years since I've touched that program. So for me, it was like, man, like how do I just get to like the template where I get started? And then, you know, maybe there's a support there. That's kind of what this is in red. This will tell you what you need when you need it, and it'll tell you what the dimensions are. So, you know, if there's ever a, you know, a mobile phone layout that you're going to do for another class, then you can go to iPhone X, which is the fourth here, and click onto it. If you need to do something like a, you know, piece of paper, you know, some type of piece of paper, you know, poster on a 8.5 sheet of paper, then on the left, you'll see like letter size, right? Postcards, websites. There's even more templates within that where you can get all these additional like pre-settings, and then it opens up a new window. And in that new window, you'll get all the different sizes for things like mobile. So, you know, Illustrator is very popular for mobile, for laying out interfaces and things like that. It'll say, hey, you have an iPhone X, iPhone 10, 876 Plus, here are your dimensions, right? And then when you click onto that template, it'll basically, hopefully you see it on my screen here, it'll basically show you on the right-hand side, the width in pixels, dimensions, orientations, which is vertical, horizontal. It'll give you everything preset in advance. So that's very helpful. So the program will always give you that power to kind of put all these things together. If you ever do a website, if you click on web, and web is here towards the top, I want to make sure I have that visual there. You'll see these little areas here, which is web, print, film, art, illustration. They try to make it easy to find the most common sizes of these art boards, canvases, whichever the case may be. So if there's ever a time where you're like, man, I don't know what size is this website or this thing is supposed to be, take a look at the pre-settings, because they're typically there for you. And since most graphic design classes will always do print as like the templates for beginning designers, then you will always find under the print section all these templates, right? The one thing that kind of irks me a little bit is, and you could change it, but basically this program will always say like, we'll give you points instead of like inches. And that's just some of the settings there, but you could change it. And that's a unit of measurement, okay? So if you're like, you know, like me, where you're like, man, I'm just all about inches. How many inches is this? Then you would look here on the right where the arrow is and select the drop-down menu and go from points to inches. And it has all the different ranges too: pixels, feet in inches, yards, millimeters, centimeters. So when I click onto inches, then it says, oh, the width is 8.5 inches. Oh, so this is this is a document that's letter size, or 8.5 inches wide by 11 inches tall. Oh, okay, that's so this is a piece of paper. Yes, that's what kind of helps me differentiate a little bit. But it indicates it as letter size, right? So you'll always find it there. Here's a cool one underneath it, is that Illustrator will actually give you like templates for free, which is really cool. So perfect example. Let's say somebody comes to you and says, hey, I need a brochure. Can you design one for me? we don't cover brochures in the class, but one of the things you can do is that you can get a template of a brochure, and you can click onto it. So for example, right here is a template, this yellow one. It's free. Okay, I hope it'll download. If I click onto it, it should say that I can download it, or I can see a preview of it. And basically what it does is that it gives me this template, and all I have to do is fill in the graphics and the text. So if you notice, it kind of sets it up in this really nice format for presentation, as if you're going to show it to the client. All you have to do is basically like download it and edit it, and the computer will do all the rest for you. And Adobe Stock will say, okay, please log in, and we'll get this downloaded over to you. Takes a couple of minutes, but eventually you should theoretically, I can't license it. Really? Okay. But theoretically, you should be able to open the file, make the edit, and set it up. It's probably because I'm in my school email in my other school, and not the real Hondo one, but that's okay. But does that make sense? So you have all these really cool templates, and I think you guys should have access, hopefully, to this template. If you do, and it does download, you can give me a little thumbs up, and that way we can kind of communicate that. But it has everything: posters, business cards, wedding invitations, you name it, anything, stationery, it's all in there. And so that's a really cool way to kind of build templates. And they try to keep it pretty current too. Like International Women's Day was this week or last week, I believe this week. And so they put templates available, and then you can get that in there. So that's kind of the idea to kind of set that up. Okay. Oh, and Jonathan, so it's inside of Canvas. So if you run through the Canvas system, you should be able to download it and get it into it, because it's a full version for all Rio students. So on Canvas, look for the Adobe Illustrator installation, follow those instructions, and it should tell you how to get the installation. It might take a few minutes though, to kind of set it up, but you want to make sure that it's set up on your system. We did a couple of tests a few times, so I want to make sure that you get that in there. So let me know if you see it within Canvas, and then we can kind of get you set up. Okay. But yeah, we'll definitely need to get it downloaded for sure. So rewind. Let's just kind of come back to our new file. And we just basically want to select, it could be any document you want, guys, for this first exercise. I'm just going to select letter, just so I can open a interface with an artboard. Okay. So you can pick anything you want in terms of templates. All we really need is this lovely toolbar that is floating here on the left-hand side of your screen. So wherever that toolbar is located, that's the toolbar that we want. So let me go ahead and reset the toolbar and switch it to the workspace switcher, which is Reset Essentials Classic. And I would assume you see something like this on your screen, which is the tool, which is like sort of an Essentials version or Essentials Classic or something similar to that. Okay. And you want to direct your eyes to the toolbar that's on the left over here. For some, it might be single column. Okay. If it is a single column, then right here where the blue, don't want that. Right here where the blue arrow hits there should be like these two little triangles or delta arrows pointing rightward or pointing to the right. So if you see those little two arrows, what that does is that it switches your toolbar from one column to two columns. So you see that there? So you get to switch it from one column to two columns. Okay. The presentation, the assignment for today is set up as two columns just to save room. So if you wanted to see it as 2 columns, then you can set it up for 2 columns that way. Okay. And you can also detach the toolbar by clicking onto the little gray bar to the right of that toolbar. So if you click onto that little tool there, it's like a little gray bar to the right of it. If you click, hold the click and pull to the right, you could technically detach the toolbar and move it anywhere you want. Okay, so I can put it in the middle of my screen so that I can get a nice visual for it. Okay. So all these tools and all these panels can move around on your screen. Sometimes there's some students that kind of like everything on the right-hand side of the screen, others that like it on the left-hand side. For right now, we could just put it towards the center so that we can kind of float around the tools and click and hold and see all the names. That would be helpful. Okay. And when I go to my toolbar, or float my mouse over a tool, you'll notice that a name pops up, or a little black rectangle with a little tag on it. That's the name of the tool. And so when you float over it, you'll see all the names of these tools. So that black arrow or the black arrowhead, that's the selection tool. So if that's the selection tool, then in my presentation, I'm gonna switch back and type in selection tool. And you kind of notice I did that for you already on the upper left-hand side. There's a text box that says selection tool, right? Now if I go to, see if I can zoom in a little bit. If I zoom in to my toolbar and see this direct selection tool, oh, I misspelled it. I have 2 tools within that. So I'm going to switch back to Adobe Illustrator. I'm going to go and take a look. That white arrow on the upper right, that's direct selection. But there's a little tiny white triangle on the lower right-hand side of that tool. That's my sign, my signal, your signal, that there's more tools in that button. So if I click, hold the click, I'll see that, oh, this one button stores 2 tools. And one is the direct selection tool, and then the other one is the group selection tool. Okay, you don't have to don't worry about what they do specifically. Just know what they are, where they're located, and that's the group selection tool. So I got 2 tools there. All right, cool. And of course, I gave it a name for you. And so it's already labeled for you, but you'll notice that it does have like 2 font sizes. And this is where you can have some fun with it because I don't want to go too long into the explanation, but you can design it however way you want. So if you feel like you're more organized doing like 1 size font and maybe 2 and then a smaller size font underneath it to kind of indicate the tools, feel free. If you want to color code, you can. If you want to draw like, 2 columns where it's the tool and then another column subtools, you have the freedom to design your note card, this digital note card, however way you want, okay? And so whatever's going to be easiest for you to label these tools, you have the freedom to go about doing that, okay? So frequently asked questions I always get is, oh, okay, so Professor, is it all the tools including everything that's on the bottom? Yeah. So you want to get everything including these 2 squares. So there is a, actually, I apologize for that gray square. We want to get the 2, we want to basically get all the tools. And by all the tools, that's referring to these subtools that are right below, right here. So even the tools that are here below, you want to include those as well in your labeling, okay? Because we will need to know what a fill is, what a stroke is, what is fill of none, gradations, they will come in handy in the class. So just knowing where those are will be helpful as well. Okay. So I gave you a quick rundown, but pretty decent one. But does that make sense for everybody? And if it does, you can give me a quick little thumbs up, a little thumbs up emoji where it's like, all right, Professor, I get you. I understand, the expectation and where we're going to go with it. You want us to label this, understand it moving forward. It's like, oh yeah, that's ultimately where we're going to go with it. Okay, perfect. Sounds good. So then let's leave some class time. So it's about 7:30. So let's do a check-in. We'll do a check-in in about 30 minutes just to see where everyone's at. We'll take about a 10-minute break, come back, and then we'll continue, and then we'll see how far we get in the exercise overall, okay? If you get done with the exercise, then the next one, which is the brushes exercise, is ready to go. And what's nice about the brushes exercise is that that you can actually take a look at the video, and there is a video ready to go for that one. So I have that ready to go with a video demonstration. So you're more than welcome to give that a try. And that leads into the paint and blob brush tool. In fact, let me just triple check just to make sure that is the video is intact. Yes, it is. Perfect. So then you can refer to that video. It's about 6 minutes, and you can watch it and get a little bit of a visual for it. Okay. So plenty of things there, plenty of supports in place for those of us that get done a little bit early. But we will go over it hopefully before the end of this evening, the faces exercise, or the paint and blob brush exercise, to be more specific. Okay. All right, guys, very cool. So then I will return in about 30 minutes. If you have any specific questions, please send a direct message. And then we'll get you set up. If you're still downloading Adobe Illustrator, refer to Canvas. Canvas will have the instructions on how to install Adobe Illustrator into your computer. That would be here after week number 1, called Adobe Creative Cloud Access. So it has instructions there on how to access the system if for whatever reason you may have been absent that day or missed that section. But feel free to go through this process for installation and get you set up there. Okay. If there's any issues with apps, then feel free to send me a direct message. I'll be in the packaging room, of course, to kind of support packaging and get them moving forward as well. Okay. All right. All right, guys, I shall return, and we'll see you in just a few minutes. All right. Enjoy. All right. Hey guys, so we're at the top of the hour, and I'm gonna go ahead and set you guys up for a break. And go ahead and a couple things will happen. First, we're gonna take a 10-minute break, and when we get, and then after 10 minutes, we'll come back and continue with the work. But I'll still be in the breakout room with packaging design, going through it. So I should be checking back in at about 8:30. So go ahead and take your break, come back from the break, continue, and then we'll go from there. But just out of curiosity, anybody get to half of the tools, like 20 tools yet? If so, maybe a little thumbs up emoji, just out of curiosity. Okay, so I just wanted to gauge. So it sounds like we'll probably go past 8:30, maybe into 9 for the most. And oh yeah, there might be some missing tools. So if there's missing tools there, Emily, then it might be a different version. So go ahead and you can skip that. And then go with the ones that you see on screen, okay, or in the presentation, because that might be a 2021 versus 2020 file difference. I may have missed updating that toolbar there. And Francesca, if you're done, feel free to check out the brushes face exercise, and then you can kind of get a visual for that. And the files are ready to go, video ready to go as well. Okay. Okay, sounds good. If there's no subtool, then fill out whatever tool is visible and you'll be okay there. Okay. Sounds good. And if I named all of them as is, yeah, if you named it without the word tool, that's okay. It saves a little bit of time. As long as there's some type of like labeling system or organization, that's the idea. And yes, you could submit it onto the same post. You could share the link like for Principles of Design, the way you shared the link, you could share this link in the same way, or PDF or screenshot, whichever is easy for you guys to submit. I'll take it in whichever format. Okay, very cool. Sounds good. All right, guys. So go ahead and take a break. I'll be working through the break with packaging design, and then I can set that up. Oh, okay. Hang tight with that, Amy. We'll go through it. I feel like it could be software related. I mean, you're in the class, I see it, so technically it should show. So I would probably maybe try checking on a mobile device. If you have like the Canvas mobile app, if it doesn't show up on the mobile app, then that means it might be an access thing on the account. But if it does show up week 5 on, like, let's say the mobile app with your real email, then that leads me to believe that the computer or the browser may not be registering something. But if a mobile device is registering it, then that means if the mobile device doesn't, then that means that something's going on account wise, which we'll have to look into with IT. But if one system shows it and the other one doesn't, then it might be a hardware software issue where maybe the browser's not showing it. So a couple of aspects there. So I always look at 2 different, like mobile versus desktop, to see if it's showing up or not. And then that kind of narrows it down to device or software or account. So sounds good. Okay, very cool. Oh, okay, so then it looks like it might be an account issue. Then I will shoot over, I'll send you a quick email of the link for the video and the file for the brush exercise. So I'll email it over to you, and then that way you can kind of set it up. As a matter of fact, yeah, I'll email it over to you, and then that way we can kind of work on it from there. But it's not due till this time next week anyway, so we'll have plenty of time there. Okay, perfect. Sounds good. All right, sounds good, guys. I'll make a note too. So let's go ahead and continue. Again, feel free to take a break, guys. And when you get back from break, continue to work. And then I'll check in right after packaging design, hopefully within about another 30 to 45 minutes roughly. Okay. All right, sounds good. We'll see you then. Okay. All right. Hey guys, just wanted to check in. Had some really good concepts available from what it looks like for packaging. I can't wait to show you what packaging creates. I can't wait for them to show you. It should be really exciting overall on the development. So I'm looking forward to seeing what we get to share. Okay. Just out of curiosity, any one of us almost done, still working / almost done with the labels for your toolbar? If you can give me a little thumbs up emoji, that'd be great. Just wanted to see how it's going so far, and still working on that. Okay. And how many of us have already completed it? If you can give me a thumbs up or a little yes, if you've already completed it, maybe a little yes green button mark would be great. And just to kind of see where everyone's at there. Okay, so we're looking like we've completed and we're all kind of set there. Okay, perfect. Looking good. Okay, so then what I'll do is I'll take the last 15 minutes of class there to kind of look at the brush exercise. Is anyone currently on that faces brush exercise right now as we speak? You're able to download it, open it, and kind of see a little bit about it. Looks like we have a couple of questions already, which is good. On it, working on it, and the exercise. Okay. So let's shoot the question. So Nidhi, if you have a question, go ahead and shoot it my way and then we'll answer that. Maybe it's going to be related to everyone on the exercise. But as you're typing it in, do I do the same thing for all the slides? So, good question. Okay, so let me go ahead and retrieve that exercise. For the exercise, a certain color face will have a certain tool, and then the other face has another tool. So what's going to happen is that the objective for this is to create facial expressions, right? That kind of match the style of that the outline of the face, right? So sort of loose, abstract, not too defined per se, right? And wherever there is an orange outline, that's going to be the paintbrush tool. And then the blue outline, of course, is the blob brush tool. And each tool is slightly different in the way it creates its graphic. So let me go ahead and download that, and then I'll retrieve it so that we can kind of see that. And we'll take a look at that exercise together so that we can pull it together. So I'm going to go ahead and retrieve it. And I'm going to share my screen here so we can take a look at it. Okay. So what's kind of cool about this exercise is that it's another creative exercise where you get to kind of do different expressions. But at the end of the day, it's only two different tools. And what's kind of cool about the paintbrush tool and the blob brush tool is that when I go to paintbrush, that's going to be represented with the letter B, like for brush, and it definitely looks like a paintbrush, right? Versus the blob brush, which looks a lot like a brush with a square and a circle combined next to it. So we see these two different types of tools, right? Paintbrush looks a lot like this, right? Just a straight paintbrush icon, and blob brush is the paintbrush, but it has like a square and a circle combined. And those differences are slight, but they're pretty significant. If I go to my paintbrush tool and click onto it, then essentially what I'm going to see in my toolbar is I'm going to see what looks like an outline or a outline of black and a fill of white. So that would be indicated here in the, I'm never a fan when those tools are missing. But the black outline that looks like a picture frame, that is the brush color, or it's or as this is known as your stroke. And the stroke color is a lot like brush strokes when you're painting. And so it kind of comes from like the traditional artists, right? They have their palette, which is like that palette of paint colors, right? Which is it's typically like a piece of wood or plastic with different colors, and they have their brush. So in order to indicate like color in this program, that picture frame represents the brush stroke, which is like the outside, and then the square represents the inside, which is the inner color or the fill. And so fill is like pie filling, like what's filled on the inside. And then stroke is what's outside, which is brush stroke or the outer stroke. Okay. Wherever I click, it creates the stroke. But what's kind of cool is that if I go to outline mode, which is Command Y on my keyboard, if I go to my menu and I go to, let me go ahead and retrieve that really quick. And I basically go to, and let me go ahead and copy, bring it over here because my screen doesn't have the toolbar because it's going there. So let's move that off to the side, move this off to the side, move this off to the side. Or if I go to, let me resume share. Or if I go to the view menu and I go to view menu, preview, or view menu, excuse me, outline, which is literally like the top of the list of the view menu, I can see the outline mode or the vector path. And we'll get to that in a little bit when we get to pen tool. But basically the brush tool is represented by a line, and the line has color going from like the inside out, for lack of a better description, right? So it's kind of like the line, and the computer is just filling the color from the inside outward. Okay, and that's kind of like the brush tool in a nutshell, and like what it is, how it works. Now, if I go to the blob brush tool, and I just take a peek at the blob brush tool, then what's kind of interesting about blob brush tool is with the blob brush tool, almost looks the same, right? It has a little bit of like a white tip, and it's painting in the same way. But if I were to zoom in, it's not a line. It's not a single line, but rather it's an outer line. So one brush tool is a line, which is literally filling in from the inside out, or a vector path filling in from the inside out. And then the blob brush tool is a brush that's kind of drawing a line, but it's creating an outline of the brush, right? So one is an outline of the brush. The other one is literally a line of a brush filling in from the inside out. So one goes inside out, the other one goes outside in. Okay. And if that makes sense, you give me a little thumbs up emoji, like, oh, that's like one of the main differences, right? Yeah, one tool, the blob brush tool, kind of makes like an outline, which is the shape, a closed shape, I like to call it. And then the other one is just a line filling in from the inside out. And so you'll find out that that's kind of like a super fundamental concept in this program. This whole notion of lines going from lines, and lines that are closed and closed shapes versus just open lines or open vector paths. So this concept of closed shape versus open lines is a big theme throughout the entire program. So I'll start it off with that there. Okay. So that's kind of the initial concept. Super basic tools in terms of how to navigate. Okay. Because for some of us, we've probably never even navigated this program before. And this is the first time. Here's how I like to use my computer. Okay. And here's a couple of quick tools on how to make this program kind of work for you. Simple thing I like to do. If you take your left hand, okay, and with your left hand, you hold down on the, oh, we have a question. Let me go ahead and do that. I'm sorry. Does the point size have to remain as 1 point or can it be adjusted? Yes, Jesus, you can go bigger on your point size. Thank you for mentioning that. So you can do that for sure. And we'll cover that a little bit more on for Tuesday in terms of brush sizes and things of that sort. So just common things I like to do to navigate my page. I always like to take my left hand, okay? And with my left hand, I like to always put my left hand or finger on the space bar. So if you're on your application and you hold down on your space bar, okay? So left hand, hold the space bar, you'll see that it goes from like the arrow or the brush tool, whichever tool you're at, to a hand, okay? And if you hold that click on the space bar, you'll see a hand. Now, as you're holding that click, right, pushing down on the space bar, if you hold down your mouse and click and hold, the hand goes from open to closed fist. So as you hold the mouse, right? So I'm holding the click on the mouse, I'm holding the space bar, move your mouse left and right. That's how you pan your screen or move or pan the artboard, okay? This is very easy. Sometimes, students like to, scroll up and down and then pull the little, the bar left and right on the bottom there. I really like to move things on like my screen like I do paper. So I always like to go like space bar for the hand, click, hold, and as I move across, if I click, hold, release, it opens that hand. And if I click, hold, move, it moves it. So kind of like you would like grabbing paper and shifting it across the table, that's kind of the effect. And you'll see that you can move a lot faster across the screen that way. Like, where is it? Okay, spacebar. Okay, move here. Okay, go up, go down. I mean, if you like scrolling up and down, by all means, scroll up and down. If that's your preference. For me, I always like to kind of do the space bar, hold, move it around. It just makes life a little easier from like moving things around, So I like that aspect of it. Okay. So if you found that little tip helpful in terms of navigation, you give me a little thumbs up just to kind of see if like, oh yeah, that was actually pretty helpful. And I could totally use that. Okay, that's good. I like that. I like doing it that way because it just saves me a little bit of time in terms of just practical use. Okay. So that's one way. I do that a lot. I still do it to this day. So I like to move things around my screen. Now, when it comes to zooming in and out, there's a couple ways you can zoom in and out. Okay. Now, let's see. One way of zooming in and out is, and I don't do this, but this is one way to do it. Everyone's a little different. If you hold down the Alt Option key on your keyboard, okay, so that's space bars. That's probably like 1 or 2 buttons to the left or right of your space bar. It says Option, Alt Option for a Mac. I believe, yeah, I think it's Alt Option for Windows too. If I'm wrong, feel free to correct, because I'm drawing a blank on the mouse version or the Mac Windows version. But if you hold down the Alt Option key and then scroll up and down, Alt works for PC. Great, thank you so much. I just appreciate it. Then that's how you zoom in and out. So if you hold down the Alt Option key, you can zoom in and out, right? And wherever your tool is, like that little circle or your cursor, it zooms in on that area. So it's kind of like a little laser that kind of lasers in. So if you scroll the opposite direction, it zooms out. If you go to like page 2 and then you scroll in, it zooms in on page 2. So zooming with an Alt Option or Alt Option scroll up and down allows you to zoom in and out on different pages. And I like doing it like that. So imagine how quick that would be, right? Like I hold down my space bar, I go to page 3, I want to work on the orange face, Alt Option, zoom in, target the face, like maybe in the eye area, zoom, Alt Option, hold Alt Option, scroll up, zoom in, release Alt Option, paint a face, and go that way. And you can kind of, draw in your face, your eyes, Obviously, I'm gonna increase the points to a little bit of a bigger size, and I could do, my little face here, and a little happy face there, right? And so there's that little tool, okay? If that was helpful, give me a little thumbs up, like, oh yeah, like that alt option, scroll up and down. That totally works. That makes life a little bit more easier. And so I like that too, because now it turns this digital program into like more of a desktop real life experience, right? Like, okay, I'm moving the papers left and right, zooming in and out. And all I want to know is where I can go, where I can zoom in, work on it, move the page, zoom out, move to the next page. That's how flexible this program can be. Photoshop, not so much, but on Illustrator, I could do that all day. So just having that flexibility is key, and I really like moving around that way, because it kind of reminds me of like shapes and moving shapes around on a page, and it will get to that point. Once we get these shapes down, you'll see that moving your drawings is as easy as selecting and moving them on the page, and that takes a couple extra little tips there too. Okay, but for tonight, I just wanted you guys to just get a little bit of a feel on zooming in and out, moving the page left and right, with the hand, or panning across with that hand tool. So I use that to this very day. Super helpful. I could be 60 years old. I'll probably still do that. Okay. So that's helpful. And the last thing I'll say is that if you wanted to make the brush stroke thick on your tools, for the brush tool, you can direct your size of your brush by going to the stroke size here, or if you have your properties panel open, the stroke weight here. So you'll see that there's like this thing to the left called stroke, which is brush stroke, and then there's a number and a PT for point. That's thickness of brush, okay? So anytime you want to make the brush thicker, 1 point is obviously super thin, but if you want to increase the brush stroke for the brush tool, then you can go to any of those tools. I like to put it this way. Illustrator, or really any Adobe program, you could do the same thing 4 different ways. Here's 2 different ways that you could change the brush stroke. It's kind of crazy, right? You normally would think it's like in one place. In this program, it shows it in multiple locations, the same tool. So in this instance, here's two of the same tool, just positioned differently according to certain panels and menu. So whether it's here on the right, you can switch it to a thicker point, or it switches on the upper left here too as well. As you can see, they link, so they are connected. And I could go thicker, and I can make like this really huge thick brush, and I can see it there on my screen, like whoa, like this huge mouth, right? Or I could bring it down to a smaller one, and I could make a smaller one, right? So the brush stroke sizes alternate according to the point menu, or the stroke width thickness menu there, and that's indicated by the PT, or thickness by point. Okay. Color. We'll cover color changes on Tuesday, but I would say have some fun with it. Like maybe let's do like half today if you got a little bit of time, and then you can see it that way and go that route. And then we can probably do the other half in class, but we can edit it, so that's always good too. Can't see the top bar on my screen. Oh, if the top bar is not visible, Ellie, then I would try to see if maybe it's the visibility. Sometimes there might be missing docs here. I would probably go to workspace switcher and see if you reset. I don't know if the settings have changed, but if you wanted to try to reset it to essentials to kind of see what I see, what you can do is that you can look for this icon, which looks like a square rectangle with like another smaller rectangle inside to the left. That's the workspace switcher. You can go to that and go to essentials and go to like an essentials classic, and it resets everything to its essentials mode. So that, or reset to essentials classic, and takes you back to like the setting that is on my screen. So that could be an option there. Hopefully that kind of fixes it, and you see it, and it switched. So hopefully it works. Okay, cool. So it worked. And I always like to go to that because sometimes you might hit a tool that makes it disappear. And that happens to me every now and again. And then I just simply just go back to reset to essentials to like back to the main setting. And it takes it back to the original settings so that I have that reference again. Okay. So yeah, this is super introductory, but it's really just to kind of get us to navigate the pages and know how to zoom in, out, and use that space bar to move and pan around your pages. Okay. Saving, we're going to need to know how to save the file, right? So if we save this file for tonight, the way we can save is that on your menu, there should be a file menu. I don't think it's showing up on my screen. So let me see if I can pull up a full screen monitor view, which is here, and that should cover it. I hope so. So hopefully you should see my entire screen there, which includes the file menu on the upper left. But basically to save your file, the way I like to save it is I always like to kind of like put my name somewhere on a file. So right now, this file has a certain name, and the name is located on this little dock right here. So wherever it is, whether it's on the far left, I have like an open document because I created one. But basically, you'll see it right above your artboard. So if your artboard's selected, then right above that, you should see what looks like a little tiny rectangle. And the rectangle should say faces exercise CAD or faces exercise.ai or a similar file name to that. And that's the name of the file. Like that's the one that I named it that I gave you. To rename this or save it under your name, what you can do is that you can go to File, come down to Save As, okay? And when you go to Save As, it's going to give you a number of different screen options. But I will say that whatever you're going to save it as, I would click my cursor before the letter F in Faces, okay? And you can enter, your first name and your last name there. And of course I have a Mac, but if you have a PC, you can save it onto like your desktop. I like to save my files on your desktop. If you're a documents folder person, you can save it in your documents folder. Basically, we want to save it in a location where you can retrieve all your files. So on a Mac, I always like to save it on my desktop. And then from there on the lower left, if it's like a completely new file that I'm building from scratch, I always like to create a new folder before anything. And I just kind of call that my Illustrator folder. So when I select new folder, I'll call this my Adobe Illustrator folder. Or you can say Illustrator, whichever you feel comfortable with. But I'm going to create a new folder so I can store all these Illustrator files in, because another great quality of a designer is that we try to keep as organized as possible. At least once you begin your profession, organization is key, because we'll be creating in a lifetime, you'll be creating so many files that you'll definitely need a system to organize it. So we want to definitely get in the habits of creating folders for everything. I learned the hard way. So I have to show you a screenshot of my old MacBook. It's pretty bad, but I'll leave it at that. And so Adobe Illustrator, we're going to create the folder. And then you can now save this file, your first name, last name, CAD file, inside that folder. And it should look blank because it's a blank new folder. Okay. So once that's set, you can hit format should be Adobe Illustrator. So that's okay. We'll hit save. And if it has options like version 2020, that's totally fine. We'll learn later that you can save different versions for older programs for people that don't have the current one. But we'll save it under the current settings. Illustrator 2020, a PDF, compressions, these are all okay. You can click the OK button on the lower right there. and you'll see the name instantly change. It's not very dramatic, but it's there. You'll see the file name change to your first and last name followed by the file name. And then that's how you know it's quote saved. And you can now start closing the program because when you exit the program now, it should not prompt you to save the file. And so you can go to Illustrator or the Illustrator menu on the upper left, click Quit Illustrator. And for me, because I, didn't create any new files, it just shuts down automatically. And I'm back to my home screen. And then my Adobe Illustrator is here on the right. I can double click the folder and there's my file. Faces exercise, hit the space bar on a Mac. If you highlight a file, hit your space bar on a Mac, it actually shows you a preview, which is a nice feature. And there's my file. And so I know it exists. I know there's my name, there's my folder, and you're good to go there. Okay. Don't worry about turning it in. We'll set it up for next week if that helps, Dre. Just so we can get a little bit of a visual for it. But no need to do it for tonight. If you get done early and you got a chance to turn it in, go for it. But if it's not done, don't feel pressured. You can totally turn it in for next week and get you there. Okay. All right. So feeling pretty good, guys. Do you feel a little bit more comfortable using the program just by a couple of simple tips? They're simple, but they're good and they're very, very helpful. I use those methods all the time to just navigate my screen and keep things super simple. Okay. Okay. Very, very cool. All right. Again, we're baby stepping it out. Next week, we'll finish up the exercises, talk about color settings. And yes, we will get to the pen tool and we'll start teaching you guys how to trace an image, which will eventually lead to tracing an image without instructions. And then we're going to turn all that cool graphics into another face. And we'll learn all about how to orient shapes, forms, and things of that sort. Get all that down. Once we get that down, then we move into a minimalist. We will move into a t-shirt exercise where we talk a little bit about t-shirt graphics, and we're going to do like a higher level tracing of your favorite sort of cartoon character and build a t-shirt out of that. So we're ramping up and you're going to love it. And you're going to feel super awesome when we're done with it. Okay. We're going to show you how we do it in the Disney way when we get in the coming weeks. All right. All right, guys. Thank you so much. I appreciate you guys sticking out for a few extra minutes. We will see you next Tuesday. Recording will be up in the morning tomorrow. And if there's any questions you might have, I'll stick around for a few minutes to answer them. Okay. All right, guys, be safe. Have a good night. You are officially dismissed and have some fun with the program. Play around with it if you got some free time. Okay. Don't wait for me. Do have some fun. All right. We'll see you then. Appreciate it.